All right, so we are back here with Ultimate Spider-Man catching up on issues 17 and 18 here, and we got a lot to cover in this one, and it is so good. First and foremost, Harry Osborn and Spider-Man, they're back in New York City. Gwen Stacy is having some issues here with her Mysterio counterparts, which is going to lead to some major crap going down here, especially as we get into the Sinister Six turf war. Also, Richard Parker gets himself caught in Kingpin's crosshairs. But first, let's talk about here what led to this, right? Now, from the last time that we covered this, we found out that Ultimate Mysterio is Gwen Stacy and that Harry Osborn was in fact alive. Now, all of this was due to her pulling an illusion here on Peter Parker back in Jurassic Park. My bad, y'all. Back in the Savage Lands. And that's essentially where we left off on the last one here. So here, when we pick back up on this, we see Harry Osborn alive, and he's decided to pay Uncle Ben a visit, who, by the way, also thought that dude was dead. So Ben lets him know that Peter Parker has been pretty messed up, man, since he thought that, you know, you died, and it wouldn't be such a bad idea for you to reach out to him and set the record straight. But then this gets Harry thinking. He's like, so hold on, you can get in touch with him? To which Ben is like, yeah, if I need to, I can. We got a system going on. Harry checks in on the family. He's like, are they safe? Ben is like, yeah, they're safe enough. But then Ben is like, cut to the chase, dude. Like, why are you here? And Harry lets him know, he's like, I just wanted to check in, make sure that he was okay, and then also tell you to keep your head down because things are about to get serious. And Ben's like, bro, they've already been pretty serious, so what are you talking about? And Harry's like, compared to what's coming, they have not been. So in this next moment here, we pick up here on Oscorp Industries. This is where we see Gwen Stacy, and she just received from information here from Robbie Robertson. Remember, Robbie works over at the Daily Bugle that's controlled here by Kingpin. And Gwen is just wanted to know, like, what is the validity here of this information? And also, can I trust you, Mr. Robinson? Which is when Robbie lets her know, he's like, yeah, you can, because we Mysterios have to stick together, don't we? So now we know that Robbie is a Mysterio. And he continues on, he's like, because we shouldn't have secrets between us, I have to ask, what exactly are you going to do with those reports? But in that moment here, there's a buzz that comes in, and the receptionist lets her know that her 4 o'clock meeting has arrived. And who is it? None other than the Kingpin with Wesley. But then look at that look here that Robbie gives over to Wesley. That looks a little suspicious, right? Let's tap into that a little bit later. So Gwen tells him, all right, have a seat. Wesley sits down. Kingpin's like, listen, I won't be staying too long, so I ain't having no seat. But he does tell her this. He's like, I'll do you the courtesy of not pretending that your husband was the one who actually ran his father's company. Everyone knows it's always been you. I'm also going to assume that you were privy to the arrangements your husband and I had regarding other business ventures. And if I'm wrong, Mr. Wesley can fill you in on everything that you don't know. But I am here to let you know that I expect those arrangements to continue in perpetuity for all time. Mr. Wesley has some documentation for you to sign to that effect. And she's like, okay, so whether I like it or not. And he walks out saying this. He's like, some people run the world, others simply live in it, which is not the first time I believe that he said this. And he's like, I'm also sorry for your loss. Condolences. I'm headed back to the office. I leave this in your hands, Mr. Wesley. But then here's where things get interesting, because Wesley's like, Mr. Fisk can be a bit demanding. And when she says that must be difficult for you, it's in that moment where this dude then shifts over into a Mysterio, and he's like, yeah, I have no idea. How many Mysterios are there? Well, there's quite a bit, you know, we've seen them before, but I'm just saying, let's just move on, right? But Wesley continues on, he's like, there's quite a bit of dancing that someone in my position has to do. For example, I helped you find your husband so you could save him, and in return, all I got was a growing number of questions from Mr. Fisk regarding the disappearance of Kraven. Quite a few tricky steps in that one. And the tune was not one that I preferred. It almost makes me want to stop the music altogether. But of course, Gwen calls his bluff. He's like, he would never do that. And he's like, you right, because I have a commitment to our cause. And then she asks a question. She's like, Speaking of, I think you have something that belongs to me. And it's in that moment here where Wesley pulls out one of the Millennium items. I'm kidding. It's an amulet that he pulls out with an eye. And he says, no, it belongs to us. Don't forget that. As she gives a sinister look and is like, I'll keep that in mind. But then after all of this, when Wesley leaves, she says out loud, she's like, they're gone. You can come out now. And that's when Harry comes out and makes his presence known. To which he said, he's like, I gotta say there, it's a little unnerving watching you operate. But after a little back and forth banter, she says this one thing here. She's like, we have the amulet here for 1 week, so let's go to war. So later on here, we see Harry go to meet Dr. Otto Octavius. And he has him working here in some like underground lab that they've concocted together. And what Harry wants to do here is that he wants to hop back into a suit, as Dr. Otto here has been preserving this. And Otto lets him know, he's like, the goblin armor is good to go. Diagnostics are all in the green, but the suit's AI hasn't been active in months. So remember here, the suit's AI is the sound of his dad, Norman Osborn. But he continues on, he's like, are you sure that you are ready for this? To which Harry's like, nah, I'm pretty sure I'm not. But today's a work day and there's no putting this off. But before Harry puts on the suit here, Otto asks for one favor. So Harry's like, is this going to cost money? Which of course, Otto's like, yeah, it is. Now Harry goes through the speech. He's like, listen, I got you, but at the same time, money is not infinite, it's finite. So make sure that whatever it is that you're asking for, that you actually need it. To which Otto says, he's like, I need a particle accelerator, which should tip us off that whatever he's about to do is about to be very 616 Otto Octavius-y. But then he continues on by saying, he's like, and I 100% need a pocket-sized nuclear reactor. But before he agrees, Harry asks a question. He's like, what about the other thing though that I asked you to do? Which is when Otto says the Parker residence is locked down. I'm actually getting ready to finish installing the security system so that we'll know if someone comes looking for them. And Harry, knowing Otto, he's like, listen, do not mess with their stuff. And Otto gives that blank look and Harry's like, seriously, dude, don't steal anything. And before he goes, Otto lets Harry know, he's like, I've also upgraded your suit with rocket launchers. And don't forget my reactor. So when Harry puts on the suit here, right, the suit boots up, everything seems good. But then the AI Norman starts talking. He's like, hold on, what is this? You've been gone? Time has passed? What is, hold on, mapping changes in brain patterns, downloading memories. What is this? You were captured? You were beaten? Broken? And Harry's like, yeah, Dad, I had a bad run. To which Norman is like, a bad run? A bad run? A bad run is fortune looking the other way. A bad run is unexpected weather and unforeseen circumstances. You didn't even know who your wife was. Which is no surprise, no great insight after all. Do you even know who you are, Harry Osborn? Do you even know what you are? I am tired of being ashamed of you. Mind you, this man is like launching rockets at the same time while he's doing all this. He's like, do you hear me, son? I am wary of the shame that haunts me even after my death. Like, Norman is brutal as this AI. Oh my gosh. And then he tells him, he's like, it's time to prove yourself once and for all. Now he's on this mission here with his wife, Mysterio, and they make a breach here into this building. But when they go on in, they see Mr. Lee's men. And Harry's wondering, he's like, why aren't they shooting at us? We just literally blew a hole through their entire building. And also none of them are holding guns. But then Gwen lets him know, he's like, it's too volatile of an environment for guns. And she continues to explain, she's like, well, Mr. Negative and his demons took the neighborhood over. They had this weapons factory inside a residential building. The people who could leave did. Everyone that's left didn't have anywhere else to go. And now they're forced to work here in a demon bomb factory. Export a specialty. But it's in that moment here where three of the men are now onto them and they're like, oh, it's the goblin guy, he's back, get him. But then in this moment here, this is where a little bit of the power struggle begins, because Mysterio, Gwen, says to Harry, she's like, you get the civilians out of here, I'll take care of the weapons. And it's in that moment here where she begins to go after Lee's men, and she creates these illusions, and none of them can figure out what's real or what's not real. As she says to one of them, she's like, real? What is real? Is it Mac's brothers with a shared cause? Or is it what hides behind them? And frantically, they begin to attack each other. And on the outside, Harry does what she asked him to do. he goes to try to go help the civilians. But then here again is where Norwood begins to berate again. He's like, this is the manner in which you've chosen to prove yourself, son? I suppose I shouldn't have expected anything else. After all, that's how you decided to treat my company, your birthright, my pride and joy, and you pawned it off on your wife so that you could play hero. Now look at you, dealing with the rabble while she handles the bad guys. I suppose that means she's better at that than you are too. But he's like, I'm saving people, Dad. That matters. And he's like, small people make small moves, Harry. And at your core, son, you will always be a failure. And that disappointingly is my greatest failure. I hoped that you would be better. And there's this moment here where Harry's like, shut up, Dad. And one of the civilians is like, what? And he's like, I'm not talking to you. Mind your business. So when he comes back, Gwen wants to know, did you get them all out? To which he says, yes. He's like, okay, but did you take care of all the demons? Is what he says to his wife. And she's like, I did. But then when he asks the question, did you defuse the bombs? She's like, I never said anything about defusing them. And in that moment, the building goes boom. And he's like, yo, what the hell? You were supposed to disable the bombs. And she's like, no, I said I'll take care of them. And there it is, taken care of. And he tries to tell you, he's like, these people could have gotten hurt, or worse, they could have gotten killed. To which she retorts, she's like, but you got everybody out, right? And he's like, yeah, I think so. There were no more heat signatures inside. But like, Gwen, like, what were you thinking? And it's here where the shoe is now on the other foot. The reason why I say this is because the dialogue that she gives here is very similar to the type of dialogue that Harry was given to Peter Parker earlier, because she says this, she's like, we're at war with a generational enemy, Harry. You know that. So we have to do whatever is required. I don't know why you're surprised by this. You were saying the exact same thing a few months ago. We do what has to be done, right? But you can see here that now, with the near-death experience that Harry has had, he's reluctant to this. Now, in this next moment here, we get over to where Peter Parker currently is right now on vacation with his family. And he gets this phone call. And initially, right, he thinks that he's going to be talking to Uncle Ben, as he usually does. But then it's in this moment here where Uncle Ben says, yo, hold on, someone wants to say hello. And the voice comes in and says, hey, Pete. And you can see Peter's face just gets like, I'm assuming like in this moment, it could have gotten bright red, whatever the case is, right? And he's like, Harry? And he's like, yeah, it's me. Long story, but come home, Peter. I need you. So this next moment here, this is where we see Harry, he goes to pick up Peter Parker where he's vacationing. And you can tell that Peter's still a little reluctant to go because he asks Mary Jane, he's like, you sure about this? To which she says, she's on board. She's like, this is what you do. Besides, he said he had a plan to put an end to our current situation, didn't he? And when Harry gets in front of Peter, he's like, I gotta say, man, it really bothers me that you don't look worse than you do, Peter. You know, because you miss me. Kind of hurt my feelings. To which Peter gives him a big hug. And when he goes to say hi to Mary Jane lets him know, she's like, just so you know, he didn't eat, by the way, for like a week. And Harry's like, okay, well, now I feel better. But Harry didn't come alone here. He brought some babysitters along with him because here is Uncle Ben and Jonah. And remember, Uncle Ben and Jonah just recently got a threat. So it's not really too surprising here to see them. But at the same time, it's kind of surprising at the same time that they would leave home. But I believe this is for the best. And I'm talking here about what happened back in issue 16 when they came face to face with the Kingpin. So Peter thanks Jonah initially. And then Jonah responds like, don't mention it. I'll volunteer for far worse and for much more terrible reasons. But then he asks the question, he's like, where's the kiddo at? To which then Peter says, he's like, Richard's back at camp and he's pretty upset that I'm not letting him come along. Put a pin in that. We'll talk about that later. But Uncle Ben has a different question. He's like, why in the world would he think that he had any business doing something like that in the first place? To which Peter gives a little smirk and is like, you'll see. But I think he'd rather show you guys more than ruin the surprise. And before they head off, Ben says, go do a job. I don't want to stay long. Too many people my age come out here and never make it back. It's like a retirement black hole. And then Peter goes over to MJ. MJ says, okay, so I guess this is it. Off you go. He says, uh-huh. She asked him one last thing. She's like, you two need a speech or something? To which Harry says, of course not. Peter starts talking to himself and responding to himself. He's like, she's a good woman, Peter. Yes, she is. But then Peter asks Harry a question. He's like, where is Gwen? Which is when we then shift over here to Gwen and the other Mysterios. Now, here's the problem that I was talking about. So Quentin Beck asks a question. He's like, what have you done? And she's like, oh, I'd say exactly what we were meant to be doing, Quentin. What have you been doing? To which he responds, he's like, suffering fools for decades. But then he continues. He's like, what do you not understand? We make decisions together. We act as one, not just because it purifies the idea, not just because it strengthens and aligns us, but because there is no forgiveness in this world for revolutionaries and radical thinkers. But then she responds, she's like, what we do is just talk and then talk some more. Talk. Well, not anymore. But then Quentin says, please stop acting like you're the singularly righteous person in this room. You only did this because of your husband to save him. To which she said, that's not true. Yes, I acted sooner than I originally planned, but once the die was cast, once I acted, I tell you truly, I was ashamed that I had waited so long. So Robbie asks a question. He's like, so no regrets? To which she says, none. And Robbie's like, what an enviable position to be in. And what mess for us to clean up. And then Wesley comes in. He's like, clean up. She killed Craven. She publicly attacked Mr. Negative. There's no cleaning this up, Robbie. We are at war. And then Quentin chimes in again. He's like, and what of the moment? He knows more than anyone else in Kingpin's circle. Has anyone spoken to him? To which Wesley says, he's like, I have. Without condoning the action, leaving Craven's body for him to deal with, put him in a position that's difficult to justify to others. So even if he plays innocent, he looks complicit. I don't think we have to worry about him for now. And then Robbie chimes in, he's like, and the Kingpin, what does he whisper to his right-hand man? So then Wesley, a little taken back by that comment, he's like, if she had not done this so publicly and on Goblin's arm, then perhaps it could have been spun as predictable infighting by ambitious lieutenants. But this left no doubt. So now he wants us dead, and he will stop at nothing to achieve that, which is when Quentin comes in and says, okay, so the die is cast. But Gwen persistent is like, and all is as it was meant to be. But then Quentin has one question to a party that has not said a word as of yet. And he says, do you care to weigh in? Now, I'm not sure exactly who this character is. There's some theories out that this might be Janice Lincoln, aka Beetle from like the 616. Maybe this is like her in the 6160 universe. I don't know. Put your guesses here in the comments. But she says, yes, I do. I want to thank you, sister, for being brave while we were cowards. Which shocks Quentin because he asks, he's like, so you agree with her? She's like, yeah, of course. Are we here for a reason or not? Are we truly committed? Do we truly believe the words? The world is a lie. And only through embracing those lies and becoming a master of them can we truly see. And it's here where, even if it's reluctantly, they all seem to kind of go along with it at this point. It seems as if though whoever that woman is, that they hold her in high regard. Because here Robbie says, our craft is old, older than the lie. While Wesley says, our power is ageless, the amulet passed from sire to spawn. 1 to wear it and 5 to share it. And Quentin completes it by saying, we are Mysterio. And it's in that moment here where Gwen says, and off we go. Now in this next moment here, we see Spider-Man and we see Green Goblin here, and they are on a mission right now. And they're all feeling pretty nostalgic, feeling it's good to be back. And Peter wants to know, he's like, well, what's first on the list here? To which Goblin lets him know. He's like, well, the only thing on the list right now was getting all of us on the same page. And if we're gonna be at war with the Kingpin and friends, we're gonna need some rules for how said war is conducted. I won't have innocent people getting hurt. To which, once again, is different for Harry. And Peter notices it. He's like, well, that's not very pragmatic. Who are you? And what have you done with Harry Osborn? But what they're supposed to be doing here is that they're supposed to be waiting on Gwen Stacy right now, but she hasn't shown up, and it's gonna be about an hour. So they got some time to kill. So in the interim, what they choose to do here is that they choose to beat up some bad guys. We see them taking down Ultimate Shocker again. We see Ultimate Hammerhead and Ultimate Vermin. But after that's all done, they still got about 15 minutes here before Gwen gets there. So Peter decides that, hey, I want to go visit my home. But when they jump on in, they see the place is completely trashed. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, what is that over there to the right? Do those look like tentacles, his mechanical arms that he usually has? Oh boy. And Peter's trying to figure out like, okay, what happened? But then Harry's like, oh crap. you're gonna be pretty mad at me here. And in that second, here comes Dr. Otto coming in with a baseball bat. Peter webs it up and is like, Otto? And this man is just like, oh, hello, you're back. So Spider-Man is like, yo, dude, why are you in my house where you do not live? How do you even know where I live? And are those my slippers? This is where Green Goblin explains. He's like, calm down, it's totally my fault. Remember how your family wasn't protected by my protocols when I disappeared because Otto didn't know who you were? He's like, well, with you gone and God knows what could have happened to me, I wanted to make sure that you and yours were fine on a longer timeline, so I made a call. And Peter's like, so then you decided to move in, Otto? To which Otto explains, he's like, after I was done installing all the security measures, I figured waste not, want not. Then also asked him, he's like, can you also please let me down, homie? And Spider-Man's like, maybe when we get back from our meeting. And then he points over to Harry. He's like, and you? I'm not sure how I feel about this. Now, when they get on the outside here, right? Goblin's trying to make up here. He's like, listen, I know you're mad, but I remembered how worried you were about your family when you were trapped. And well, I didn't want you to have to feel that way again. As for Otto, I had no idea. I'll make sure to get him a new place and make sure that he returns the slippers to it. Spider-Man's like, nah, the dude can keep him at this point. But you know, Spider-Man realizes this too. He's like, you know what, Harry, you made a good call. I shouldn't be mad. I should be thanking you. It was the right decision. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. I can only do my job the way it needs to be done if I know that they are all safe. As they head over here to the Oscorp Industries. But back over here with Mary Jane, Ben, and Jonah, when they get back to their trailer, Jonah's asked a question. He's like, yo, where is your brother to May Parker? And when Mary Jane gets to the door, she sees a note that says, Mom. And when she pulls it up, she's like, oh crap. And she lets them know that Richard is gone. Now, where did Richard go? Let's find out. Because you see here, Richard is just a young man that is in love, as teenagers get ever so quickly, because he's texting back and forth here with Felicia Hardy. And he's letting his girlfriend know that he's bored, oh, so bored, and how he misses his girlfriend. And she says, oh shoot, is that what I am now? And he's like, yeah, sure. Certain thresholds haven't been crossed, but when two people spend this much time together, well, you know. To which, of course, she obliges and she's like, well, I guess that would make you my boyfriend. And she's like, you know what else super powered boyfriends are really great at? And he's like, of course. What? And she says, saving their girlfriends. And he's like, just say the word. Say less. I'll be there. To which she lets it know. She's like, Richard, I need your help. And I want to pause here for a second and say, if she was in this such dire problem, would she be texting? But you know what? Young love. Always so melodramatic. So let's continue. Now, this all transpired here, by the way, an hour before Harry and Peter had left Utah. And the Pico suit is trying to tell Richard, like, dude, I'm not really sure I like where this is going. But Richard is adamant. He's like, I gotta help her. But then the Pico suit's like, speaking with some authority on the subject, your parents definitely will not approve of this, especially since your father already told you that you could not go with him to help. This is reckless and dangerous. To which Richie's like, imagine how much more dangerous it would be if I was flying solo. Good thing that we're together. To which the Pico suit's like, manipulative, but agreed. So he uses the stealth mechanism here in the suit, disguises himself onto the plane, and that was how he was able to make it back here to New York. But then at the same time, he also finds out here that Harry Osborn's wife, Gwen, is Mysterio, but I'm sure that will mean something later on. Now he goes in and he sneaks into here where Felicia Hardy was. And as you can see, Felicia Hardy seems fine. And he's like, oh man, I'm really happy to see you. To which there's a voice that comes in and says, not as happy. And it is the voice here of the Kingpin and all his other bullseye men with Felicia Hardy. And this dude is just a sitting duck. And Kingpin comes over and is like, I don't want you to be scared. Yes, your situation is precarious, but nothing bad needs to happen here. I just need your help. And he's like, He's like, Miss Hardy tells us that you slipped up when communicating with her, giving away a little more each time. Certainly enough for a savvy player to read between the lines. I know that you are in league with Spider-Man, and one way or another, you are going to give him to me. To which Richard looks over to Felicia and is like, how could you? I thought, were you lying about us? To which she responds, she's like, no. So he's like, yo, so why would you do this then? To which she replies, "Isn't it obvious? It's in my nature," which of course is a callback to a previous conversation that they've had. So, oh my goodness, this story just continues to go in different twists and turns that I continue to love every single month. I don't know how Hitman just continues to keep doing this. I absolutely love this. What did you think here? Leave that down below in the comments. Also, leave a like on this video here for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. Also, if you're looking for ways here to be able to support the channel, one of the ways that you can do that here is by becoming a YouTube Keepin' It Comic channel member. You can do that by hitting the join button down below, or alternatively as well, you can also become a member of our Patreon. The link for that is going to be down below, where you can click on our link tree and you can gain access to all of our links there, including Patreon, as well as also our Keepin' It Comic website that has merch, that's going to have some future newsletters there. We appreciate you always, more than you know. Thank you so much for kicking it with Keepin' It Comic. Bye.